In today's episode, I'm super excited to introduce you guys Christina from the See You Online YouTube channel and the mega big TikTok account. Christina has seen a lot of success in a very short amount of time in the print-on-demand space. She opened her sweatshirt shop less than 3 years ago and has managed to quit a 9-to-5 job that she absolutely hated and basically do what most of us dream of, travel the world as a digital nomad. After overcoming her own limiting beliefs about quitting her 9-to-5 to then moving away from side hustles that caused her burnout, she finally managed to build her business that she has today. And I'm super excited that she is here today so she can share her whole story with us. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Welcome everybody to the Till Death Stop Me podcast, because the inevitable is one day we are going to die. Sounds pretty morbid, right? But you want to know what I think is even more depressing? Merely existing on this planet and not achieving, not going, not experiencing, not meeting, not having every single thing that I've ever wanted in this life. We have one shot to do this thing right. So we might as well experience every single thing we've ever wanted, have every single thing that we've ever wanted, build communities with long-lasting, meaningful relationships. Most importantly, achieve our ideal version of what success looks like to us. So that is why in this podcast, we're going to be interviewing people that, even against all the odds, have been able to do that and are working constantly every single day to build their ideal lifestyle. So without further ado, thank you for tuning in, guys. Let's get into this episode. Alrighty, and welcome Christina to the TDSM podcast today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you. So for anyone that doesn't know, Christina is a digital nomad. So I'm really excited to hear about your whole journey from basically, realizing that you're ready to be an entrepreneur to doing it, and then now really like living this ideal lifestyle. I don't know if you know this, but my whole career started because I literally wanted to be a digital nomad. Like I was like, I want time freedom, financial freedom, and location freedom. And now I'm still not a digital nomad, but I'm definitely like working. I want to do, I guess I could. I mean, you're doing it and still living the life, but we'll get there eventually. So tell me about your background and how you got into all this.
Yeah. So I've loved travel ever since I was a kid. But it's funny because I don't think, it was always in the back of my mind, on every single New Year's resolution was to eventually work and travel. But I don't think it was my main kicker to getting this part started. I had worked, loved my job. I worked in digital marketing a few years ago. Loved it up until COVID. I ended up switching jobs and went from a job I loved where you go in and you see all the people and you make best friends with everyone, to a higher up role where it was all online. And I was finally oh, I can work online. Granted, it was COVID and we couldn't travel, but the job was my first time ever experiencing anxiety. I was expected to be on call all the time. You were yelled at in front of everybody online if you got in trouble, and they were just I would get messages and it was my first time experiencing anxiety, stop sleeping. I remember I went on my first trip kind of mid-COVID-ish. It was during our first semi unlockdown where you could travel cities. And I was so stressed. I remember I didn't sleep at all. And at that point I was I need to figure out something, because if I go on this, I'm going to go insane. So
But it was the same company, but just a different work environment, and it just something.
It was actually a different company, same role.
Oh, same role. Okay.
Yeah, just a little bit higher up.
Okay.
But yeah, the just cultures between the two places was so different. So yeah, that was kind of my first I need to do something. And at that point I had somewhat started a side hustle. My first side hustle that was actually making money was actually doing pet portraits on Etsy. So I had learned how to draw kind of during the beginning of COVID, and I had heard about Etsy. So I was like, hey, I'm going to list some of these pet drawings on Etsy. And that was my first like time seeing how Etsy kind of works and how you can like make sales on something without ever having to do any marketing. And I think within like a month or two, I started like getting a few sales here and there. And that one actually ended up growing to a few $1,000s a month. But on top of having that job that was really stressful, and I now had this side hustle, and like the nature of the side hustle was every time I got an order, it was like 2 to 3 hours of work.
Mm.
It was like I was stressed all day. And now I also worked from 5 till midnight every night, just drawing these pet portraits. So I was like in this like stress all day long. And yes, some people ask me like, why didn't you leave your job at that point? You had the side hustle. But like I just knew how unsustainable that one was. Because I was like, I can't do these all day. Like my neck hurts because I was drawing on my iPad. And I was like having major posture issues because I was like bent over all day. And then a lot of more people kind of started coming onto Etsy at that point and like charging way less. I don't think that was at the point yet where AI was kind of coming in, but I'm sure that job's just literally irrelevant now because you could AI exactly what I was doing before.
Right.
But from there is when I was like, I wonder if there's something else I could do with Etsy. And I actually first found out about print on demand because I was trying to learn how to print these pet portraits for people. And then I came across Printify and Printful, and I was like, I could at least print these for people. That could give me a little bit more extra income. And then eventually it just snapped where I was like, I don't have to make these all this customized. I could just start making t-shirts and sweatshirts that have zero customization to start making sales and not have to like burn out in this way that I am right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So what was that like? I don't know. Some people will be like, oh, your success was only because the COVID rush, blah, 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 which is what people would say to me. And I'm like, actually, I started way before COVID and still was getting sales way after COVID. So were you still, was that already after that high or during that high? And then what did you see, I guess, out of that high window? Like it still continued.
Yeah, like for me, I actually started after. So my print on demand store started like mid 2021, and then it kind of kicked off end of 2021. So it was a year past like the main COVID. Like I don't think we were in lockdowns anymore. And yeah, everyone who like was in print on demand before me was like, oh, you missed the big raise. Like you missed it. And then I'm glad that never stopped me from starting because I'm still making more sales than I was even then. It's only been a rise. So yes, it could have been more in 2020, but if I didn't start, I would have had nothing.
And what did you start with Printify or what print provider did you use?
So I actually started with Printful and quickly realized I don't want to be with Printful. Sorry, Printful. But I was getting it so like everything was delayed. This was again a long time ago. It was more expensive. I was just getting lots of complaints. So I ended up doing half and half to Printify, and just things were shipping out a lot faster with Printify, getting less issues. So for me, I did end up making the full switch over to Printify.
Okay. And you're still currently running POD shops now, yeah?
Yes.
Awesome. Very cool. So now you basically have done the thing. And then when did you start traveling? When you're like, oh, okay, this is real life. Well, I guess what was the KPI that said, okay, I can quit my job and then start traveling?
Yeah. So I actually went on a trip with some friends. So my work had allowed me to work online for a month. So I went to Mexico with a few friends, and I am very blessed to have like a friend group that all like seem to work for themselves. Like my fiance was working for himself. My friends were all working for themselves. And I was the only one with the 9 to 5. And when we were in Mexico, like even my friend, he was like, why are you still keeping this job? He was like, you are literally making more, or like, I think at that point I was making just the same for my job as I was for my side hustle. And I was like, well, what happens if like something happens to my store? And he was like, well, what happens if you quit your job and now you have 8 more hours a day to work on your store? And I was like, that's a very, very good point. Because at that point I was only putting in like 1 to 2 hours a day, baby, on growing my store. So he's like, imagine what you could do with so much more time. Like, it's not going to stop.
Right.
And then he like every single day was like, are you going to quit? Are you going to quit? And actually on the last day of that trip, I ended up quitting. And then we went home for a little bit, repacked our stuff, and then went to Argentina after that. And then that's when I was still growing and just my first like fully nomad work for myself type of trip.
Dang, that's awesome. And that's really like, I mean, encouraging, I would say, to somebody that's listening that's like on the cusp of, should I quit my job? I don't know. That's my comfort zone, to just, doing the thing. So do you think, obviously it paid off, but at what point, once you actually quit your job, you're like, oh, that was the right choice?
Yeah, I think almost right away. Like I could just, number one, it was just like the stress that I mentioned that I was feeling like it was
Mhm.
too much. And then just having that weight lifted off and now being able to put like not only those 8 hours, but like a dedicated and excited and a mentally better 8 hours as well. I think that was very much a payoff. In that first month, it was amazing. I was able to enjoy
Mhm.
Argentina. I was able to take off a week while still working on my store. And like, I think when I took off that week and like really getting that passive income without working my job, without doing the side hustle for a week, was like, wow, this is the life. I want to do this forever.
Yeah. No, that's really awesome. And that's scary. I mean, it is a big leap of faith, but it's almost like believing in yourself, in that, learning how to believe in yourself. Because also I just feel like when you're in that flow state and you're working from flight or flight or anxiety, like your output of productivity is so much less. So it's really cool to see that like you really found something that like put you in that more flow state or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
And I feel like that feeling of like scaredness, it doesn't ever really fully go away. Like I still have those, and I'm sure you do on days where it's like, what if this all just ended one day and I have to go back? Like I think it's a fear we had back then, and it just keeps going. It doesn't really fully stop. It's just learning to kind of ignore it and like get over it sometimes now.
yeah, I definitely, I mean, yeah, as an entrepreneur, it's like, yeah, you don't have a whole company, I guess, backing you. But, my one thing that to combat that was like, in my mind, I've watched my dad, who worked corporate America his whole career. And every single time he lost his job was because the company was tanking or the company got bought out. He worked for Ford, HP, Truist, like big companies. And it's like when he got dumped, like that was completely out of his control as well. So it's like, even if you
Yeah.
have a job, like it's not solidifying your destiny just like you doing a business. You know what I mean? I guess in the business,
Yeah.
it's like you can't blame the other guy, you have to be like, oh, okay, it failed because it's on me.
That's
But
very true.
I just think that there's no definite, you know,
Yeah.
solid ground regardless. So if that gives you comfort because you want to be an entrepreneur, then,
Yeah.
let
And
that
we've
be.
learned so much from this. It's sometimes like if everything failed, like I've got the knowledge to start something else again. That can be scary, but it's like I do truly believe I could get something
Right.
else. And if something shut down my YouTube and all my shops, and somehow before ever even thinking about going back to work, I'd give quite a bit of time of just rebuilding.
And not only that, like that's another thing, like because of all the skills that you've now acquired in this online marketing digital space, right? Etsy e-commerce, like you could literally probably even go get a more senior position at any e-commerce big brand, like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And make probably double what you're making at your other corporate job,
That's
because
very
you're actually coming in place of seniority of being a CEO. So that is another thing that also gives me a lot of comfort. Even if, say, I didn't want to rebuild everything and I lost everything today, it's like, okay, well, I could option one, go do something else myself again, or option two, like if I really just don't want to have that responsibility, as much responsibility, like we could probably go get a senior level position in our you're probably not even 30 yet. So that's what I'm saying. So like you would be probably the youngest in a very senior level position having the experience that you have.
yeah.
So backing up to when you were in Mexico, you basically were, I mean, I think it helps for sure when you're in an environment where you're around a lot of people, like the doers. And, you said like you were the only person basically that wasn't. But for
Mhm.
somebody that's like, say that, isn't in that environment, because I feel like, it's nature versus nurture, but also like, I don't know, the exposure from your nurture or whatever. So not that that was like your parents nurturing you to be having friends with whatever, but the environment, like what you're exposed to. Because I too was exposed pretty early on to like, being an entrepreneur. So I guess the thing is like, for somebody that maybe doesn't have a bunch of friends that are entrepreneurial or working for themselves, but they are, leaning towards this way, or hate their corporate life, what is the advice that you would basically give to someone like that?
Yeah, so I think that's when you turn to online. Like online's got so many different communities now. Like you can find like Facebook groups, you can like join paid memberships, or like if for you also resonate with traveling, like going and staying at certain places where there's nomads. Like it's gonna sound funny, but if you go to Bali and go to the like nomad cafes, you go to the nomad meetups, like I went to so many of those, and you just meet people doing the coolest things. Like, and you meet people from like making thousands to people who just started. And I think that's been another huge network of people that I've met, is just going to where the nomads go. And even just a small trip, like, yeah, doing somewhere closer to you. I love to stay at Selena's. They're like this brand all over the world where it's like a co-working spot / also hostel. So pretty much everyone you meet there is usually working for themselves. So that's a great way if like you want to become a digital nomad. It's amazing to meet those people, but otherwise just online meeting people is a fantastic route as well.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes it's traveling is like where you go, depending where you go, it's like cheaper.
Yep. I lived last year was my biggest trip when I did the 6 months in Asia. And I was joking that like every day I felt like I was just swiping my card. And then I would check my bill and it's like I spent $200 that month. Like, I'm sure that's an exaggeration, but it was like you spend nothing. Like coming back was so hard. It was like, what do you mean I can't get my $4 pad thai? What?
I would love to know actually, like if you did a whole bank statement for that whole time, excluding purchases that you're making overseas, I would love to know how much Christina spent in 6 months in Asia. That would be a really, really good piece of content.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, like she said, like, I mean, before I really was like, I didn't do the full digital nomad, but I definitely tried. But before that, I mean, I have so many internet friends, like people like, I mean, you like, we don't, we've never met, but we'll spend hours on Zoom calls with each other, like just talking and connecting just because it's like-minded individual. And so all that stuff, I feel like you said, just helps so much. So for somebody that is, or what have you seen historically as like the biggest thing that really holds, aspiring Etsy sellers or e-commerce shop owners, what do you think holds them back the most?
I think like probably the two biggest things is number one, just like having the right expectation going into it. As a lot of people, I think, go into print on demand or anything and they're like, I can make money in the first week. And then they are hit with the like hard reality of it takes a lot of work. It's not hard, but it's hard to be committed and dedicate yourself to learning enough for you to be successful. Like, I think the reason print on demand and Etsy and like everything pretty much for people is hard to become successful is because it might take you 2 to 3 months of doing work with zero payoff at the beginning, because you're not going to get sales. So you're just going to be like, in 3 weeks, nothing happened. I'm going to stop working on my store. It doesn't work. I tried it doesn't work. Versus like the people who are successful are the ones who could push through. And if everyone was successful in the first 3 months, then we would be so oversaturated. I think that's the hardest part. And then along with that is also just focus, because in the same way, some people will do it for 3 weeks and then hear the next best thing and they'll switch their focus, pretty much just consistently resetting themselves back to zero. Like even when it comes to products, like pick one and just nail it. Like get really good at the research for it, the mock-ups for it, studying the competitors for it. Because if you're consistently like adding brand new products and you're not sure which one works, you're just going to get all scrambled. And it's just really hard to stick out, I guess, when you're just trying everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Master one before moving to the other. And it
Yeah.
was so I was just talking to somebody else about this. It's so crazy because that like we're saying, give it really like 3 months of optimization or really, really trying or learning the skill. And it's crazy because like in reality, my mom was an entrepreneur. She owned physical like hair salons.
Mhm.
And you didn't see a return on your money like back in the day. I sound like an old lady. Like to give you like some perspective, like to make a profit, like in the online, like the fact that you have this like potential to make money in your first year in business is
Insane.
crazy. I'm not
Yeah.
saying the first week, I'm saying the first year. So the fact that we complain about, oh my gosh, I've been trying so hard for 3 weeks. I'm like, my mom didn't make all her money back on her investment for her hair salon for like 3 years, 3 to 5 years, but that's like normal. So I think it's like you said, just like, setting the proper expectations definitely going to carry you way
Yeah.
farther. Way, way far. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
and
sorry.
another thing I like to think of in terms of really similar to that, I'm like, we spend how many years going to school to get a 50K a year job? You'll easily spend 50K a year going to a school for 4 years to get that job that you think is going to pay you 50K after all of that. But we can't put in that time of effort into a business, which is going to have a way better payoff than a consistent 50K a year thing. It's just been so much, it's just way more normalized. And that's why it's easier to do that because everyone's on that path.
Yeah. Actually, it leads me to another question because I go back and forth on this. Do you think, I mean, we're around a lot of like-minded people. So like our Instagram and our TikTok feeds are like, we're always being exposed to entrepreneurship and stuff like that. But I always thought that like in like 20 years, like colleges were not going to be a thing. But then like I'll talk to other people and then they will be like the opposite. They're like, no, strong colleges are getting stronger. Like there's more people wanting to college. I'm like, I don't have any data on that, but like, what do you think? Because I feel like colleges are like, you're paying for outdated information, even arguably like this is like a bold claim, but like, I don't know, to some extent, like even in the health space, like maybe not. So I don't know. Like there's some things that obviously you need the degree for, but even
Yeah.
still, it's like it's quite outdated. Like I remember marketing classes and I'm like, this is what we're talking about. Like, what about social media? What about this? What about all these things that they like it's just over their head. It's just so they're teaching you outdated information, basically. So sorry, I'll let you talk. What do you think on that?
No, like I completely agree. Like I definitely think for certain things, like you should be going to school. Like I don't want my doctor who didn't go to class for that. But like, yeah, other things like most people I know don't work in what they went to university for. It helped, I guess, create connections. I like met some good friends and like learned how to do homework and stuff. But like most people I know got a job. Like I even got my first digital marketing job. I didn't go to school for digital marketing. I did a night class, a condensed 3-month night class. My fiance went to a 3-month coding boot camp, and that's where he got his job after hating what he did after school as well. Most people I know got this type of knowledge through like
Mm.
not courses, but like condensed more courses that are more practical, that are like hands-on than university, where it's just filling your time for 4 years. I had so many write-off classes. I joke that my university that was easier than my high school. Like it was a write-off. I had a great time just goofing off, but
Yeah, yeah. In Florida, we have something called like Brave Futures. So luckily I had like a scholarship that paid pretty much for most of it. But like looking back, I like looking at my friends that came out of debt or even my sister, I'm just like, you're starting your life as a young person 5 years behind. Like
yeah.
you have so much debt. I don't, it's like so crazy. And when you're 18, you're like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't care. But like, if I had that much debt coming out of college, like, I don't even know. Like,
Yeah, and like America's way worse, right? For us, we don't pay that much, and even
oh,
then,
yeah.
it's like
No,
quite
no.
a bit.
You pay. Florida's actually one of the cheaper, but yeah, a lot of states, especially like northern states, like it's not cheap at all. So,
Yeah, yeah, I
so
wouldn't start my world that much in debt. I've luckily never had to be like much in debt. Like very lucky Canada, but
yeah, it's just I don't know. I feel like it's just robbing young people. I don't know,
yeah.
but we'll see how that manifests. Um, So then how did you transition into, I mean, now, you have your shop and then you also built this whole community and your YouTube channel. What decided you to go, and actually TikTok as well. Like your TikTok
Mhm.
is super massive. What led you into now sharing your experience of like what you built?
Yeah, so that was actually like the most unexpected part of all of this. Like if you asked me 2 to 3 years ago what job I could see myself doing the least was anything to do with the camera. Like I actually had like it was like that is my biggest fear is talking on camera. Like I can't do it. I don't want to be an actor. I don't want to be on stages. Like I don't want to do anything with that. And my friend was like again a good group of they're also very big into growth and they were like you should at least get used to it. So my friend challenged me. She was like, hey, we're both kind of camera shy. Let's create one TikTok, or you don't even have to post it, just create one TikTok and before New Year's. And I was like, sure, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I'll just talk about my recent profits. It was Christmas. It was like my best profit month in my first year for print on demand. So I released that video with my stats and I was like, okay, it's actually pretty good. I'm going to post it, see what happens. I wasn't following anybody. So like no one I knew would see it. I didn't even tell her what it was. We are going to keep them secret until we were like comfortable with them. And then we went to a cottage the next day. And then I woke up and I was like, 100,000 views. Then like 200,000 views. And like by the end of the day, I think I had 30,000 followers.
No.
And I woke up and I was like, what just happened? Like, I don't know. And like, people were like, you get the mix of everyone on comments. So that was like my first experience of like, you're a liar. And then the next one of like, teach me. And the whole range of emotions that came with that.
Yeah.
But like, after that, I was like, wow, there's like some power here. Like, people are interested in what I'm doing. And like, people were asking me, like, oh, what was your like tip? So I think my first few videos were just like hitting reply to people and answering the top comments I saw. And then yeah, from there I was kind of like doing more and more videos. And I think I would like luckily at the time hit like TikTok jackpot back when like things like blew up quite a bit because it was like in a newer platform, I guess. And yeah, so for a year, I got more comfortable doing short form. And then I did notice that like the views on TikTok were kind of going down. And I was seeing more and more of like the TikTok friends and people I had met doing print on demand were moving over to YouTube. I saw the other big print on demand YouTubers killing it. And I was like, maybe I should try and learn some long form. And at first it just started because like I also couldn't like there were certain questions I couldn't answer in a minute. Like back then there was like a minute maximum on TikTok.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, I'll start adding longer videos and then I can shoot people over to there to answer their longer questions. And then from there, I was like, I'm just going to start doing like tutorials and stuff. And then I've just had a lot of fun growing on like YouTube and seeing like my confidence in front of a camera grow.
It's so crazy. Yeah. Well, if you go back and watch your beginning videos and how you talk and to now, it's like a
Yeah.
completely different. Well, that's crazy. So you conquered your fear and you freaking just blew up. That's insane. That's
It was
awesome.
wild.
That's, it's so crazy. TikTok, I would have to say, I mean, I'm very small on TikTok. I didn't go as crazy as you, but people are freaking mean on TikTok. You
Yeah.
guys are way more mean than YouTube. And you're just like, why are you so angry? Like, what are you angry at?
Yeah. It's funny
But
because now I find my YouTube Reels is meaner than my TikTok, but for a while TikTok was the one where I was like, oh, I'm scared to see what people have said.
I mean, yeah, I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons, and especially with all of the people that you've helped and everything. So that's awesome. Wow, I did not know that story. That's crazy. And I'm like the opposite. I was like on YouTube so long and then I almost I got my channel deleted and then I didn't take it seriously until like basically like this last year and a half or whatever. But I wish I got on TikTok earlier, met you guys earlier to know that like all the cool things that you can do with TikTok. But that's awesome. So are you taking students now or what are you doing as far as like, or is it just free content? Do you have a course? How are you helping support all of these people?
Yeah, so I do share all my tips on YouTube and stuff, but I do have a course as well, along with a membership that comes along with that. So with the membership, it's like, well, with the course as well, you get like we have a Facebook group, private Facebook group to get over any questions. But then with the membership, we also have like calls. I share my research. Just to help people whenever they're stuck. So I think one of the biggest thing people like is just the community and asking
Yeah.
questions and getting live feedback. So that's something I really, really love. Like, I want to get back to people within like a day or hours if I can.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the biggest. Like, there is a lot of like free content online, but that one-on-one help is where like I've seen the best like results in like, because I've had courses, I have mentors, like I'm paying for a coach now, and just that one-on-one like answer is really what can help people.
Yeah. And the community aspect. I feel like the most growth I've ever had personally, probably the same for you, is like in a community setting, like
Mhm.
masterminds or,
Yeah.
groups, whatever, Facebook groups, like you're just seeing how other people operate. It's just invaluable. Like I've been running my business, this part of my business like this for this long. Oh, wait, I realize this is totally wrong. I should do it this way because, you just don't know what you don't know. So that's really freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And you did all this in a really short amount of time, which is like super impressive. Like less than what, like 2.5 years, 3 years?
I guess since mid 2021, and I guess we're 2020. I don't know how far we're in 24 now. So I guess 3 years, but
I know, it's crazy. It's already freaking February, like end of February. This is
yeah.
wild. This is just so wild. Well, this has been super awesome, Christina. I'm so happy that we got to have this call. And this is the final question that everyone is waiting for, which is, what are you never going to stop striving for until death stop you?
So I think probably something, it would just be like growth in general. Like if I made $1 million tomorrow, I wouldn't stop doing what I'm doing, just because like the growth part of it is so fun. And like every step of the way I'm learning, and like whether I'm eventually like, my business, I don't want to grow, like personally, maybe that's the growth I want to strive for. But I just think the minute you start, like, you're like, I've got enough, I'm done. Like life gets really boring. Like it's kind of it's a game. I feel like it's been like gamified life. And it's like, I just want to keep getting better in terms of like, and that can be in health and family and my business and learning and just all together.
Yeah, I love that. I could not agree more. That's awesome. So, all right, guys, we're going to make sure we put our links below, her links, our YouTube channel, all the things, all the good things below. So you can make sure you can subscribe to her channel and her TikTok. And yeah, thank you, Christina. Thank you
Thank
for all the
you.
value shared.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.